both of you have been champing at the bit to talk about the DC crime story. Because, and actually, Inez, you have an interesting, Rachel works in DC. Inez lived in one of the parts of DC, actually very near where the one and only Big Balls was assaulted just last week in the sensible precipitating event for Trump's federal takeover, which was probably in the works anyway. But there were, like, have you guys seen these clips? Let's roll. This is a voiceover V1. There's like federal law enforcement roaming Union Station last night. Union Station definitely needs a heightened police presence, but they were also roaming the streets of Georgetown, one of the high-end neighborhoods, though I will add has had smash and grabs. I had an attempted vehicle theft on the street, broad daylight in Georgetown just a few years ago, vehicle vandalized, all that good stuff. Fun times. So Inez, as both a great legal mind and someone who fled DC for the verdant, peaceful streets of New York City, you seem to be pretty happy about all of this and unperturbed by the jackbooted thugs taking over the streets of idyllic Georgetown.
Yeah, it's funny that the overlap between the people who pretend to be urbanists and into, the walkable city and everything, and the people who want law and order so that people can actually walk on the streets is basically zero. But yeah, no, I'm really glad to see DC actually have a chance of turning itself around. I don't think people understand how violent DC is, and I have the perfect comparison, especially how you set this up, Emily. The DC homicide rate, if you account for the number of people and you normalize it for the number of people in the city, is 10 times the homicide rate in New York City, right? So there's all of this coverage about, New York falling apart, and it is. So I'm not, denying that. Like, there are crime problems in New York, but DC has 10 times the homicide rate of New York City. Apparently, that's 8 times the homicide rate in Fallujah. I discovered that today. So it's all no. I mean, in all seriousness, both the stats and the anecdotal experience in Washington D.C. The anecdotal experience reaches the point of data, which is how with how voluminous it is. There isn't anyone in Washington, D.C. who doesn't know someone who was a victim of a major crime. Like, honestly, I don't know anyone who doesn't know somebody who was the victim of a major crime. I think Rachel's going to agree with me, living in that area.
I've been a victim of Rachel's crimes many times.
We're all victims of Rachel's crimes.
Many such cases.
Yeah, well.
Take a number.
No, but I'm sure Rachel has her stories too. I have my stories. Emily, I'm sure you have your stories. I was fortunate to do on and off 10 years in the district and never be a victim of a serious crime. But I mean, even the ones that I was a victim of were, and this is like completely normal, to be clear. This is, like you said about Georgetown, this is something that happens in DC, even if you're not hanging out in Anacostia, you're not hanging out in like the bad areas of DC. I had my license plate stolen, and then people, committing a bunch of crimes with my license plates attached to their cars, and I had to deal with that through the city. People exposed themselves to me. I had somebody
once again, that was
on
Rachel.
The street and go into my building to try to like follow me into my building. It wasn't some, it wasn't the stalking that is the stuff of, internet fun and games, right? This is like not somebody who knew me. It was somebody who fixated on me on the street because he was high out of his mind and then followed me into my building and tried to follow me into my home, right? To do who knows what. Anyway, these are like very minor crimes, and everybody has experienced these things in Washington, D.C. But yeah, both the stats and the anecdotal experience, it makes it so that they're just lying when they say this is not a problem. Anybody who has been in the DC area for any amount of time and is not just coming in and out very briefly, even in the nice areas, and knows how much of a problem this is. And they are just straight up lying because Donald Trump is not allowed to be right about anything in that city. That is like the bottom line of this is I'm amazed that they lie so blatantly about this, because I know that there are so many people in Washington, D.C. screeching about authoritarianism right now who are going to be secretly so happy the next time they drive into Capitol Hill that they don't have to put their head on a swivel when they're in their car at a stoplight.
Yeah, that's a real thing. Rachel, you actually work on Capitol Hill, and you have actually for many years worked on Capitol Hill. So let me get your response to this clip. It's going to be S3. This is MSNBC, I think it was Morning Joe, realizing in real time the politics of continuing to deny the problem that Inez just laid out. S3.
And the murder rate, you can't keep saying violent crime is down, but the murder rate's up. To the average person, the murder rate's about life and death. You don't brag about a rising murder rate. And the Democrats are, I agree with you, Mika, they're falling into the trap of defending what's indefensible.
It's a trap. Yes, it's a trap. I mean, if it's not a winner politically to say, oh, you're wrong, look at the data. Because, if one violent crime happens in a very heavily populated part of the city, people hear about it and it's visceral. They don't want it. And they'll gravitate to the person who appears to be doing something about it.
So, Rachel, just south of Capitol Hill in Navy Yard, there have been multiple teen takeovers, which sounds like a fun thing, right? Where like the Beatles come and everyone gets really excited and, all of the ladies are fanning themselves like a teen takeover. But actually what it is pure anarchy in the streets of a residential neighborhood with like luxury buildings and stores and normal restaurants. This has happened like several times over the course of the last few months. People are outraged about it. Not far from Capitol Hill is where a lot of Capitol Hill people work and live. And to Mika's point, this is literally hundreds of teenagers. It has been reported in local news. Hundreds causing anarchy in the streets, literally less than a mile from the seat of our legislature. So it's not just a political problem. It is actually a real problem, not a political one. It is real.
It's insane the amount of gaslighting that has been going on about this topic. So the funny thing about Navy Yard is I used to live there. I lived there before it was gentrified. So there was like two buildings and the new stadium. This is in like 2011 to like 2015. It was safer then when there was literally nothing there except like...
And it probably wasn't very safe.
Yeah, and it wasn't, right? It wasn't, but it was like walkable to the Congress. So that is why I lived there with my, roommates.
And to the Morning Joe studio, by the way. It's like 2 miles from that studio.
And now it's completely built up. It's like marketed as one of the high-end luxury areas of the city. And as you mentioned, there are many members of Congress that live there because of the proximity to the Hill. At least 2 members of Congress have been assaulted in that region. Henry Cuellar, I think, was carjacked. There was another member, a female member, I can't remember, I think, who was assaulted.
The elevator.
Yeah, and assaulted in an elevator. And that's not to mention the number of, like you said, these like teen gangs that rush the entryways of these buildings. There have been multiple shootings. And again, this is not like marketed as anything but a luxury area of DC. And I think it's funny, I tweeted something earlier this week that I thought was so banal. It was like that I was almost like, why am I even tweeting this? But it basically just said anyone who's lived in DC for over a decade knows that the last 5 years, the city has fallen into decline. I did not think that was a controversial statement. It like completely went viral, and the amount of people attacking me for saying this, but it's so true. And I think that's the tragedy of all of this is that DC is an objectively beautiful place. It is a beautiful city. It has amazing parks. It's set up in this, wonderful, logical way. It's easy to follow. It has a building code that the buildings in the city cannot be above Lady Liberty of the Capitol. So you don't get these like towering high rises. It's just a gorgeous city. And when I moved here in I don't even want to say what year.
Do it.
It was 2006.
1994. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Close.
The city was on okay, calm down. The city was on a good trajectory. I mean, it's a city like any city, right? You have crime you have to watch out for, but it was fairly low level, and the city was beautiful and welcoming, and it was only going up. And areas of the city were only getting better. And that's what's so devastating about this is that really it was 2020 that broke this place, and it has become really unlivable in certain sections. And, I've worked in DC in the Southeast quadrant for over 15 years. I walk that city every day. I walk downtown, I walk to the Hill, I walk everywhere. You can't walk without someone, especially if you're a woman, harassing you, riding bikes around you, trying to take your stuff. There was a period in 2020 where people would surround your car. My husband gave me pepper spray grenades at that point. And he was like, if you ever get surrounded, throw these out the window. He's since taken them away from me because he was worried I would spray myself, which is like not
I'm
an
always worried
unreasonable
about that.
fear.
My husband gives me pepper spray in New York, and I'm like, you don't understand. The chance that I'm going to actually successfully pepper spray somebody is way outweighed by the chance that I will pepper spray myself.
But I mean,
be
like
careful.
the State of Union Station alone, which
Yeah.
if you visited DC, you know where this is, right? It's one of the centerpieces of the city. It is gorgeous. And it's a place where, everybody used to hang out. There were places to eat. You could get your lunch and sit in the center, corridor of the station. They used to have these places where people just gather and hang out. It used to have really fun sushi restaurants, all these places. Now it's overtaken by like vagrants and people peeing on themselves and people following you off your train. I mean, and that's just been in the last 5 years. So there is a legitimate problem here.
They had to take out every single place to sit that isn't in the lounge and the like immediate train boarding area of Union Station, because every single place that had a chair was taken over by vagrants and drug addicts.
Yeah.
I told everyone these two were excited to talk about DC crime, and clearly they have 5 years of built up anger at the situation to vent right now. So let me turn, Inez, back to you to ask a sort of devil's advocate question. Although, to be honest, I won't lie and say I'm not concerned about potential overreach. And maybe all three of us went through the typical libertarian phase of being a person in the conservative movement. But sometimes, those reflexes come back out at me. And I always say the most hillbilly thing about J.D. Vance is that old email or blog he wrote about hating the cops. And sometimes when, you see federal law enforcement, there's already been there was a video of them taking a guy who's smoking a joint and arresting him. I'm not saying that I don't even know what I think about that type of thing. I feel like there are bigger problems in the city. There's truancy rates that still haven't recovered from the pandemic that are unbelievable. The level of truancy in DC public schools is mind-boggling and obviously correlated with the rise in juvenile crime that the police chief here was talking about just a couple of months ago. None of this you're hearing in national media. You're not hearing in national media that there's a commander who has been suspended recently for allegations that he's cooking the books, that the DC police union supports Donald Trump's plan so long as it's temporary, because they believe the crime stats are being, that the books are being cooked, and they have believed that for a long time. So, Inez, do you worry that there's a risk of overreach, that in the federal city, the beautiful federal city, there's something just wrong about having to crack down like this? Or what's your take on the potential ways this could maybe veer off course?
No, honestly, what's wrong is that our beautiful federal city that is not maybe the first place that people from outside the United States think about when they think about the United States, but is the seat of our government. And as Rachel said, and I completely agree, is a beautiful city. It is laid out on the basis of Paris. Okay. And there are beautiful row houses all over. There are beautiful monuments all over the mall. It's walkable. It's small. This is part of the reason, by the way, that the crime is so inescapable, is because the city is only, you can walk to Georgetown, from Georgetown to Capitol Hill, which are kind of the furthest 2 points of the city across that are still, sort of highly populated and have a lot of stuff to do in them that isn't just residential. I think that's 4.5 miles. I used to do it all the time. So it's very small. You can't escape the crime with money, the way that usually the critique on this, which is an accurate one, and there are people doing this, the critique on the crime in our cities is, with all the libs who say, I'm walking, there was a video that went viral in Flatiron in New York of all these people eating outside. And it was like, oh, okay. There's no crime here. What are the conservatives worried about? They're all wetting their pants over walking. No, you went to a really nice part of the city, obviously. And that's usually the case.
I left my wallet on a table outside the Flatiron once, one of those little patio tables.
Yeah.
Came back 20 minutes later, it was still there.
I mean, I wouldn't do that.
It was an accident.
I wouldn't recommend it. But no, it's a really nice part of the city, and you hear these kind of takes all the time, and they are happening in DC. But DC is so small that, as you mentioned in the lead up to this, there was a murder on 33rd and M in Georgetown in 2022. And it was at 5 or 6 p.m. There was still daylight out, and there was a cold-blooded murder in the middle of Georgetown. There are hit and run, smash and grabs, everything in Georgetown. Even the nice parts of DC, because they're all so proximate, are suffering from this. So no, I don't worry about overreach with this, especially since the federal district is under federal control. Congress and the president control the DC. Okay, so there is no authority that either the mayor or the city council or any of the municipal authorities in DC have that was not explicitly, specially, voluntarily granted to them by Congress. DC has a special status written out in the Constitution. There are a lot of reasons for that. We can talk about why I think DC statehood is a terrible idea for a variety of reasons. But this is a city that has a very special status. And so I don't worry at all about overreach. And frankly, as somebody who was more libertarian on the marijuana issue, even 10 years ago, it's not my bag, as they say, but cheers. But I thought of it as fundamentally harmless. The way that it has become a feature of urban decline and public use has become completely normalized and accepted everywhere, from the playground to those nice tables that you're talking about that you left your wallet. I mean, the number of people who just come down and sit down next to you and just start smoking a huge joint and make everything stink is huge. So no, I'm happy to see them arrested, and frankly, I get excited when I see these videos. I'm like, this is great. Rachel too, right? Rachel?
Oh, she's already excited. I can tell. She has something to say.
Violating the law flagrantly. They expect to continue violating the law permanently, and now they're actually facing consequences. It's like watching a screaming toddler on the plane who's been kicking your seat, get put in timeout. That is the feeling that I'm experiencing right now, watching people get arrested in Washington, D.C.
So, Bovard, I hope they kick you clean out of any Rand Paul alumni group chats that you're in for what you're about to say, because I know it's going to be the full abandonment of your libertarian legacy. You used to be one of the mouth breathers with a fedora.
Well, as I like to say, libertarianism is the starter pack to conservatism, right? If you weren't a libertarian in college, what are you even doing? But I really do feel like I've been on an evolution on this point, because even the point Inez was making, 5 or 10 years ago, I was very sympathetic to the overreach of policing throughout America. I think I've written op-eds and talked about how I'm against police offices or police stations purchasing war equipment, right? Yep. They'll purchase it from the DoD and use it. I was very against all of that, was kind of outspoken on those issues. The last 5 years, honestly, have broken me to some extent. My boss's car has been broken into 6 times. The police have done nothing. I used to take my toddler to work to ride his little tricycle up and down the sidewalk, stoned teenagers on ATVs going everywhere, pushing through their scooters. I can't take him to the city anymore. My friend, actually current Rand Paul staffer, was just walking down H Street in Northeast in the middle of the day on a Sunday, was stabbed 4 times, the membrane in his brain pierced by the knife, underwent multiple surgeries. And this was just by a random vagrant homeless man who had been let out of jail the day before. The city, you lose the social contract when you allow your citizens to be harassed in this way. So all of that to say, I was texting you guys earlier about this video I saw on Twitter of a guy.
So you could say that any day. That happens as a day that ends in a Y. I was texting you guys earlier about this video I saw on Twitter.
But it was this man who was clearly high on something, smacking the FBI officer with a Subway sandwich while wearing a pink lace shirt. And you know what?
A federal crime now that it's a federal official.
No, he ran.
You're going straight to federal court, my friend.
He was arrested. Jeanine Pirro said he will be charged. And at that moment, every last vestige of libertarianism left my body on this point.
And of course, that sentence said everything. This is the Stefan bit. Jeanine Pirro. The libertarianism remaining in Rachel's body. Subway sandwiches.
Guys, I'm still against mass surveillance, and I will die on that hill of civil liberties. But everything else.
Amen. Amen. Well, I think we've solved the problem sufficiently. Well, over the years, I've been clear about this. I'm not just pro-birth, I'm pro-life. And being pro-life, of course, means standing with mothers, not only before their baby is born, but long after. And that is exactly why I partner very proudly with Preborn. Preborn doesn't just save babies, they make motherhood abundantly possible. They provide free ultrasounds and share the truth of the gospel with women in crisis, and then they stay with real practical help, including financial support for up to 2 years after the baby is born. Amazing. This is what true Christ-centered compassion looks like, not just for that little baby, but for the mother too. And here's where you can make a difference. Just $28 provides a free life-saving ultrasound. One chance for a mother to see her baby, and when she does, she's twice as likely to choose life. Preborn is trying to save 70,000 babies this year, so don't just say you're pro-life. Live it. Help save babies and support mothers today. Go to preborn.com/Emily or call 855-601-2229. That's preborn.com/Emily.